Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Presentation Hell Podcast. I'm your host, James Ontra, coming from Embark Studios here in Tampa, Florida. Today, we have the privilege of sitting here with Riley Walker. You're the founder and CEO of Ryco.io.
Yeah.
Ryco.io is a learning service. You help teach, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, we create custom content for the classrooms, both for schools and for K-12 publishers.
So, all right, that's a big nut. There's a lot of stuff that's wound up into that. Like, is this like Power School? Is this like Blackboard? Is this like IXL? Is this like if you have a child in school, where would they run into your services?
Yeah, good question. We're really the content providers for those various LMSs. So we create the content. We have a team of really experienced educators and really experienced technologists, and we can kind of like make any dream become reality. So we build content for these teachers.
You build content for the teachers. So in many ways, you're repurposing history books. You're repurposing math books. I'm trying to figure it out as just an average person.
Yeah.
What does it really mean?
So on the classroom end, we're building custom content for all these schools. So we work with various
like Pearson?
Well, so that's the publisher end. So we have two ends. One is for directly to schools where we work with department heads. So head of math, head of social studies, right? They have a budget to build out content over the next, XYZ months, and they hire our team to build on-demand content for them. I have this idea. How can we build something like this? We ideate with them. We iterate, we build a product for them that goes directly into whatever platform they're using, whether that's an app, a website, an LMS. And then on the publisher end, they hire us because we have experienced educators. We understand how the classroom works and how teachers can actually deploy product in a classroom. And you would think every educational publisher has a million teachers behind the scenes, but they don't.
No.
It's just business people and graphic designers and things like that. So they really utilize us because we have a good pulse on the classroom.
And what is the final product? Is it just a digital project? Is it HTML? Is it slides?
Yeah,
is it presentation?
Yeah. So if you go to Ryco.io, you'll see
that's RYCO.io.
Thank you. Yeah. And if you go there, we have all of our services listed. But we do everything from immersive learning, metaverse spaces, virtual reality, augmented reality, down to your basic manuscripts and assessments. So we kind of do it all.
You're a tech company, but it sounds like there's a huge consulting component of it, that every job has a unique piece to it.
It does, yeah. And right now we're currently building out a platform to make us a little more scalable, including AI and things like that, that will allow teachers to kind of interact with this platform on their own and develop content that is aligned to their classroom needs.
Is it something how do you sell it? Does the school buy it? Do the publishers buy it? If I'm a teacher and I made a book, like, give me a little bit of the business model.
Got all
How does the
examples.
business model work?
Yeah, so on the school end, like when we work with like a district or a large school, so a really good example is a charter school based out of Pennsylvania. They're the largest charter school based out of Pennsylvania, and we've really like kind of helped them grow from something like 15,000 students to like now 28,000 students. And the reason they've been able to grow like that is they're a wonderful company anyways, but they're also able to offer very different courses because we're able to just diversify their courses, right, in their catalog. And so what we do with them is we have, just one price that we set. Each department basically has like a segment of the budget, and we work from that budget. So the end teachers don't necessarily know exactly what the budget is. They just know that they can keep requesting things from these teams. And as long as their manager goes, yep, that's okay with me, they can keep kind of using us as that resource. And it is very consultative at first. We kind of work back and forth with these teachers to figure out exactly what they need, and then we deliver that content. And again, this is stuff like, interactive stuff. Like we do a lot of, remember like Carmen Sandiego? So we do like
yes, I'm old.
Animated fun games, right? That also teach you like geometry, right? So we build things like that, but then also like even custom videos. For a few of our clients, we've even like they wanted authentic language. And this was a Spanish course, so we hired specific directors in Mexico City and specific directors in Barcelona and everywhere else in the world that speak Spanish, and we created these like really authentic videos that aligned with that particular lesson that they were going in. And then that's school. So we basically negotiate with the school. We have a budget with the school, and we work with them to kind of deliver this content to their teams. For publishers, it's always much more specific. It's around a specific book, a specific program that they're building out. Last year, a huge thing was decodables. So the science of reading, phonics, is making like a real comeback. And so they need
maybe the action of reading fell off the boat, and now it needs. Maybe there's a
yeah. And like fundamental math and financial literacy and other things like that are kind of trending topics in our industry. And so these publishers will reach out to us to develop product for that. And that's usually a very specific timeline, very specific budget, sometimes a very specific author that's involved with it. And we build that out.
Who's the subject matter expert on each one of these? Who is the person who is dictating like what's being said? In effect, if I said, I need a course on Abraham Lincoln and the Gettysburg Address. Who would be the ultimate arbiter of whether you said he walked up onto the hill and stood in front of the crowd and delivered his speech 7 years ago? Or could someone say he, sat in his tent and said it to himself and then put it in a piece of paper and sent it around to everyone?
Yeah.
Who is the arbiter of that expertise?
On my team, a guy named Dan Casey.
Okay,
But
so there is an expert on your team.
Yeah,
so you're actually doing a lot of the actual direction of the education.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's why they're reaching out to us. And so, and that's why half of our team are super experienced educators. So they've been teaching this for the last 10, 12, 15 years in a classroom to that age group. So they know they've tried and tested a million ways to deliver this message and communicate what happened. And I think that's really one of our secret sauces as to why we're really different than other companies, is because we really hire super experienced people that have just tried this literally for the last 15 years. And one thing I always tell educators, like we just brought on a brand new one in the Hillsborough County system. She was in the classroom for 14 years, and she was really intimidated about all the business stuff, right? Like she's never had a Slack. She needs to create a LinkedIn. It's things that teachers just haven't really thought of.
Yeah, because they've been dealing with little human beings and teaching their minds as opposed to dealing with all of us nutty digital
networking
people.
And things like that. Yeah. And so, anyways, so she was really intimidated by that. And one thing I always say to all the teachers is, I'm hiring you because of your 14 years in that classroom. I'll teach you all the business stuff. But I'm hiring you because you're just an incredible educator. And I think that's really resonated with them, and it makes them feel a little more comfortable. And then we also have this whole other end of our team that are all technologists that help with that kind of onboarding and training that they need.
Who owns the copyright to all this material?
Yeah, so everything we build currently, the client completely owns, so they can do whatever they want with it.
Okay.
And that's another differentiator, I think. A lot of times people have like licensing fees and subscription plans and other things like that. Everything we build is theirs to use in whatever way they want. So they could literally turn around and print books from it if they wanted to.
Without any problem. So this is something that's very, I would say, beneficial to any school district. They aren't threatened that their knowledge is going to float out the door.
Nope.
You have the expertise, but also they have the expertise. And obviously, if they own the knowledge, they can look at it and go, I was there. Lincoln sat in his tent with mud.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Yeah. It's very collaborative, like the building of it.
It's funny that I just said that about mud. Have you ever heard the statement, your name is Mud?
No.
You never heard that my name is Mud, meaning you've got a bad name?
No,
well,
I haven't.
Here's a little story I'll go on the side there, is when Lincoln was shot, Booth was running away, and he ran into a doctor, and he had a broken leg, and the doctor's name was Mud, and he helped him out. And then when Booth kept going, they said, why did this doctor help him out? The doctor didn't know he had just shot Lincoln.
Interesting.
So there's a story that my name is Mud. That means you're the doctor who helped the guy who shot Lincoln. You did what you were supposed to do, but you were all of a sudden the scourge of the whole country.
Yeah, that's a fun fact.
So that's just a little thing. I know a lot of stupid things. It's not stupid. Actually, it's a nice type of thing.
It is. Yeah.
I find it very interesting that all this content is come together this way. And it seems like it's a much bigger business than I anticipated, because I named a couple of like Power School and iExcel and Blackboard, and there's a variety of others. How do you fit in with this competitive landscape? Are you a competitor with them? Are you a supporting actor? Are you in a slightly different place? Or
We're in a slightly different place than those players, and we can put all of our content onto those platforms. So our schools are negotiating with these LMSs and these platforms to work on, right?
LMS is a learning
Management system.
management system.
Yeah.
I only say that so people listening know what they're
Totally.
hearing.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. But yeah, so all the content we make is completely custom, is LMS, learning management system agnostic, and yeah, that's why it's really helpful, because some of these companies are new schools. Maybe they're building an application, maybe they're building a website, maybe they're building their own proprietary LMS, which is the case in a lot of our clients.
Usually they get in over their head, not realizing what it really gets into and the commitment you have to make over a long period of time to keep it up to date.
Yeah, but really it's their job, like it's whatever company they've either, if they have their own proprietary LMS, they have their own technical team that is working specifically on that. What we do is we create the content that goes into it. So it is a different business, right? Like we're not a platform in which we are not a learning management system.
You're just a content creator.
We are a content creator for schools that is highly customized and very quick development.
Do you do this for private companies?
Oh yeah.
So let's just say I owned a software company and I needed how-to information for my clients, users, as well as the admins to go through it.
Yeah.
You would be a qualified person to reach out to say, we can put this all together. There's 15 stages, and you can accurately look at what it is and say, we know how big this is. I know how deep this project is, and we can deliver it in 6 weeks or whatever.
Totally. We do that, and we have done the L&D thing, the corporate training thing, a little bit, but we have recently leaned more into the schools, just because our subject matter experts are educated teachers, right? And I think one thing that we provide to L&D groups is a very teacher's touch, right? It doesn't feel corporate. It's very gamified and interesting and just different. But the hardware or whatever this company is selling, we need to now intimately know to teach about it. And so the scalability around L&D companies that we've worked with in the past has been a little difficult. And so our scalability on the K-12 side is way easier because we already have all these SMEs in-house. We don't have to relearn something.
This is your expertise.
This person's been teaching it forever. But I do think from an instructional design perspective, we do really help L&D groups because we're not just creating boring PowerPoint slides.
You think PowerPoint slides are boring?
I do.
No, that's what there's been statements, death by PowerPoint. There's a variety of different things. Is there certain communication technologies you find better? I heard you say the word gamified. Give an example of what a gamified educational product would be, something that people would know.
Yeah. So the tech behind it is a tool, an authoring tool called Articulate 360. And they have various products, one of which is Rise, which is a very quick way in which you can create really engaging online content, publish it kind of wherever you need. But then they also have Storyline, which is much more of a development-heavy tool. However, you're able to really kind of build whatever you can imagine in that. And we have super skilled people that develop in that authoring tool. And so the Carmen San Diego example from earlier is a great one. We built a haunted house escape room for a geometry course. And these students needed to find clues and figure out geometry problems in order to escape this room and move on to the next room.
They had to angle up to get up to a certain leverage point so they can stand up on top of a block and see the actual opening to get out of the door, which needed a another mathematical equation to get through.
Yeah, something to that degree, and there's even like some monetary value in the sense of like, if they're stuck, if they're stumped, and they don't know how to move and progress through this thing, they're able to use some coins in order to get some hints, and so there's that kind of gamified nature in it as well.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to sum up what I heard here, just to get it. Where you're not an LMS company. You create content for schools, and mostly schools is your target. You've done it for some businesses and stuff. You have the expertise on board. You make the content so that the class, the teaching environment can go through. The schools own it themselves, so any school district can come to you. Even any teacher could come to you. Any university could come to you.
Yep.
And help make content on there. Is there certain sizes that of institutions that you don't bother with, or you have a sweet spot with? Meaning, if the University of Tampa came with 12,000 students, would that be too big for you? Or if Rampelio school right next door wanted to do something and only had 100 students, would that be too small?
Yeah, good question. So far, I mean, we're a startup, right? So we're very open to kind of taking on all these customers and figuring out what are good fits and how to work with that. But we've worked with everything you just mentioned as far as student population goes, and down to even independent authors. So we worked with a guy out in California, and I'll give him a little shout out. His name's John Broussard, but he's a principal, and he's a fabulous principal. And he wrote a book. And he wanted to, like, a professional development for teachers to kind of go along with this book that would keep teachers inspired, right? Teachers are leaving the classroom like crazy. And so we worked directly with him, just a single person, and built out a whole curriculum and a whole professional development plan based around his book. We had audio excerpts of him reading parts of his book and telling stories. And now he sells that. He goes to conferences. He gets everyone super excited, and now he has like multiple products that he can offer.
That's impressive. So, just to sum it up, and I kind of did before, is you're the learning content guy. You make the content that helps people learn.
Yeah.
Everyone who comes through you ends up smarter at the end.
Yeah.
All right, I can go for that.
Yeah.
This episode of the Presentation Hell podcast is brought to you by Shuffler. Shuffler is presentation management. We make AI presentations faster, smarter, and more compliant for a global enterprise. So we just heard a lot about what you do and bringing this stuff into order. And I know anyone who's had children or has been through school lately has felt this type of educational process. But here we are at Embark. You're in a startup situation, pushing your dreams, putting it forward with everything you know. What brought you here? Where'd you come from? What moments in your life triggered you sitting here next to me today?
Yeah. So I grew up in a very small town in Maine.
Very small town, like
I don't even know.
You don't even
5,000, 4,000. I don't know. It's small.
Okay, up near Waterville, Maine, up near the top, right?
I have family in Waterville, yeah, in Skowhegan and all of those places. But this was like the Bath, Woolwich area. I grew up in Woolwich. I went to high school in Bath. I didn't even have a high school in my town. But when I grew up, I was always a pretty good student. My sister was an artist, and she wasn't as great of a student. But she was just as smart as me, if not smarter. And I just felt like the traditional educational system just didn't provide her content in the correct way, right? And so that's one of my motivations for just being interested in education in general. Like, how do we create personalized learning for every student, regardless of kind of their strengths and weaknesses? So from there, I came to University of Tampa. I got a good scholarship to go there, and it was really different than where I was living, and I liked that. It was far away from home. It was palm trees, not fir trees. It was different, right?
It was sunlight, not snow.
Yeah. You didn't have 8 months of clouds, so it was different.
Lobster costs a lot more down here.
It does. Yeah, that's the only negative thing, I guess. So yeah, I moved here and went to UT. And when I was at UT, I was a poor college kid. and so I needed money. And so I was working at a restaurant, Fly Bar, when it was still downtown on Franklin. And my roommate at the time got me the job. And they had a fairly affluent crowd that went in there. And so I just met some really interesting people, one of which was a theoretical particle physicist. And he was an educational publisher.
A theoretical particle physicist, and he was also a publisher. Okay.
Yeah, and I just found him really fascinating. He went to like Princeton when he was 13. He was a professor at Syracuse when he was 20. He was just like kind of one of those freaks that was just like, what? Tell me more about your life.
Doogie Howser.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so, anyways, I just ended up kind of talking to him a lot. And then it would be like me, him, and then the owner of Fly, who has opened up a few. She's like a restaurateur here, kind of like in the Tampa area. And she was also equally interesting. And so I was just some, 18, 19-year-old kid hanging out with people, twice my age, just learning from them. I was just a sponge, and I did it every night. And this guy was, he came there often. And so, yeah, I would just hang out with these two people that were just way more experienced than I was. And just like, again, I'm from small town Maine. So like, they've lived all over the world and they have all these insane stories and they've created multiple businesses. And it was just so interesting. And so that's kind of how I got into educational publishing. So that guy wanted to hire me.
Oh, hang on. I'm not making the connection between hanging at the bar with super smart guy and the owner of it and educational information. How did those two connect?
Yeah.
A little closer.
Yeah, I mean, well, so most of what we talked about was his, like, what he was doing in business, and he was developing curricula and courses and online content.
Okay, so it was
right?
his business.
All
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like when the restaurant owner would talk about stuff, she was always kind of pulling upon her experiences in building restaurants, starting out on the West Coast and then moving to Florida and all that. And then everything he was referencing was very educational based. And I built this product here, and he worked for Pearson for a long time. He developed like a lot of like ITT Tech's whole curricula. And so anyways, that was how I got interested in it. And to me, it was like the connection back to my sister. It was like, this is a way in which I could build something that could eventually get me to like where I am now in building customized, personalized content for students. And so that's the connection there.
That makes sense. So,
Yeah.
So if I'm just going to recap this a little bit, you recognize you were a very smart, interested kid. Your sister was more of a very smart, artsy kid. You recognized that as an artsy kid, there wasn't the proper education to recognize and support her situation, and you found that as just an off thing. And then as you went to school and you came out here and you hanging out at the Fly Bar, having discussions, you realized that this other person, was it Broussard, you said his name was, or that was the...
I'll keep his name discreet, but yeah.
Agent X,
who
we were speaking with, Publisher Educational X was putting the information out, and you found that very interesting, and you saw the connections and the connection between digital education and communication through content and the possible ability to break through different temperaments, talents, and convictions so everyone learns, not just the people who are good at reading and regurgitating.
Yeah, I think that was my super interest when I met him. I just saw the pathway to get there, right? I had someone that was successful, that could hire me, I could learn from, and figure out kind of what I was going to do after that. So that's kind of what I did. And he said, I really wanted to like build product. I went to school for business. And I love teams, and I love culture and building teams. And he was like kind of this gateway to reach that goal. And before I could manage any teams, though, he said, you have to be a writer yourself.
It's almost like a mentor guide or a Sherpa in a way, someone who showed up in your life when you needed direction.
Yeah. Someone always says like, what is luck? And I think like luck is like opportunity plus some guts,
Okay, I'll go with that.
You need to like spot it and like be bold enough to go for it.
Yeah, you have to kind of have done your homework ahead of time to become lucky.
Yeah,
you have to train in baseball to be lucky enough to be picked to be on a pro team.
Totally.
You have
Yep.
to, do these things. You had to recognize the things as a kid to be lucky enough to recognize it here.
Yep, exactly. And so then I was writing, and I was writing for probably 4 years. I wrote textbooks and software books and teacher guides and assessment questions and you name it, everything. And then finally, when I had written enough content and I understood kind of the writer's journey and what that looks like and how that feels and what timelines are realistic versus not realistic, I kind of was promoted to now manage a team of professors. And most of them were based out of the Pennsylvania area, so a lot around Pittsburgh. So all of a sudden, this 22-year-old kid is managing, professors from Pitt and Carnegie Mellon and places like that. And they're like, who the hell is this kid? But I think I quickly built respect there just because I was helpful and I was accommodating to whatever they needed to kind of execute what they were doing. And then, so then I started building products for this company. And that was kind of like my first job, I guess. Well, my first job was actually working with a carpentry company on the coast of Maine when I was like 15. My dad was a lumber salesman, and he hooked me up with this company that was wonderful. And it was like one of the best experiences of my life because I just learned hard work early, and I met really awesome, humble, just,
people who built things with their hands.
Wonderful, yeah, and then also lifelong skills. Something breaks in my house, I now have like the tools and know-how how to fix
that
it,
makes a difference.
which is also cool. Yeah, it was like
also,
a fun byproduct of what
you can see something and go, I can make that better.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so, from there, I went to school for business, marketing, advertising. I had some graphic design skills as well. And so I noticed that a lot of these educational programs were wonderful, but they had a really difficult time marketing themselves. So then I created a company called Brandtail Communications, which would really allow all these different educational companies, was the majority of our audience, to market their products better. So I did that for 4-ish years. And then my partner in that was from University of Tampa. He started a technology portfolio company, which I then joined and as the chief creative officer. So I was helping a variety of industries, variety of businesses build their product and come up with their messaging and so on. And then Ryko started really because of COVID and the pandemic.
Is Ryko an acronym for anything, or is it just the easiest name you could get?
A little of both, I guess. I was struggling to come up with a name. It was, not my first company, and you've obviously created companies too. So you're always like, what am I going to call this thing? And I asked my wife. I said, hey, how do I name this? What should it be? I just want it to be like Riley Co. I just want it to be like that, so I don't have to think about it. And she goes, well, why not Ryko? And I was like, oh. That sounds kind of nice.
And then you were able to get .io.
And then in .io, we're pretty interested in the whole blockchain Web3 space as well, and that's kind of on trend there. And that's why Ryko.io is our name. And I always write it Ryko.io so that it links out everywhere that I send it. Whether it's a message to you in a text or that's like a post on LinkedIn or something, right? Everyone's really easy to get there. And then, and so I had all these, just kind of bringing it back to why I started Ryko was the pandemic hit, and I had all these past colleagues and clients reach out, and they're like, Riley, we're in trouble. And we were not prepared for this.
Yeah, no one was prepared for it.
Right. And so all of these...
some people are, and we don't want to name them right now, but...
Yeah. All my clients weren't. And again, these are like old relationships, but I think this is kind of like don't burn bridges, always be a good person and so on, because all these people came back to me just because they knew I knew something about this world of online learning. And so, then I basically started helping all of them kind of tackle their problems, and it became really, really interesting, and I had a lot of interest in it. But I was the developer, the writer, I was the everything. And then I hired way better developers and way better educators.
You were an entrepreneur. You jumped into it with the naivete of not knowing how big the wall was.
Yeah, totally. And now we're at Embark, and our team, we have probably 12 full-time people. We work with anywhere between 25 and 35 contractors, depending on whatever projects we're working on. We've been growing 100% year after year. We started off here in September of 22, and we were 3 of us in a back desk, and now there's a bunch of us in a bigger office upstairs. And our deals are getting significantly larger. Our talent around us, we're just trying to surround ourselves with really good people and hire really good people that fit the culture of what we do. And it's kind of just growing, and just trying to be as helpful as possible.
Well, you're in a very good place here at Embark
Yeah.
to be a good, I call it a fertile foundation for entrepreneurial talent. There's support, there's love for what you're doing, there's real interest, and it brings it out.
Yeah. And also too, coming from a guy like, for so much of my career, I worked from home in a home office by myself, right? Like there were a couple of years I spent in Austin, Texas. My wife joined a startup there. And so like I didn't know anyone, and I'm just working from home in my home office. To be in a place that has other entrepreneurs, has like the passion that we all have, having events like yesterday.
The leadership
super
event was super
energizing. It was just like, whoa. Like I'm getting advice from people that were the first 5 employees of Gusto. Like, holy cow, and we're in the stage of hiring a ton of people. We've hired a lot of people in the last 6 months, and just hearing that type of advice on, making sure it is a good fit and so on, but from people that have done it, is just so
Everyone's
incredible.
got an opinion, but from someone who did it is much more valued.
Totally.
And that's what you're all around here.
Yeah.
So, quite frankly, you're making content for students, for schools, for universities, mostly so that they can teach their courses and summarize what their books are and everything. It's admirable. It's a high use value. I could see it really growing big and being very valuable over the period of time. Take a moment. We'll finish up the episode here. Take a moment, talk to the audience, tell them who you are, what you do, how they can reach you, and this is your ad. Go.
Thanks. Ryco.io, ryco.io. Go there, check us out. We have plenty of forms you can fill out to get in direct contact with our team. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Riley Walker. But we are growing something that's, I think, really unique and different, very much needed in the education space. And we're going to be launching a platform probably end of Q1 of next year. So that's coming out too. And I'm trying to get better at doing things like this and informing the audience of what exactly we do. So stay tuned, and hopefully we have more stuff soon.
Will you come back here and when you're ready to launch and do?
I would love to.
That would be awesome.
That would be great.
Riley, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This is your host, James Ontra of the Presentation Hell podcast from Embark Studios here in Tampa, Florida. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.